Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Make sure to hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons. Well, this nation is ground zero for the coming global depression. A depression, I think, frankly, is already here. So what nation am I talking about? I'll tell you in just a moment. But first, I want to bring up this issue. I brought it up maybe a month or two ago, but it's worth checking again. But if you're watching this on YouTube, and you want to be subscribed to this channel, check and make sure that you are still subscribed, because I've been seeing a lot of interesting statistics that lead me to believe the channel has been under like a shadow ban for 4 months or so, where I just see numbers go up and then they just go down, and then they go up and then they just go down. And it's been basically the same. And I know the last time that I brought this up, I got a lot of feedback that people said, I didn't unsubscribe, but I found I was unsubscribed. So again, if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to be subscribed to this channel, check and make sure that you still are. So, what nation is ground zero for the coming global depression? I believe, my personal opinion, is that it is this one right here. So this is one of those interesting articles we're going to look at. Let's look at the headline, right? Because that's what they want people to see. They know people skim headlines. Germany's emissions hit 70-year low in 2023, according to this study. Well, that's fantastic, right? Let's read what they have to say about that. Well, they say Germany's greenhouse gas emissions hit a 7-decade low in 2023, as the country continues to phase out, and I'll just insert their commentary, they want to say evil, right? Evil coal-fired power in its electricity mix. So the wonderful green energy policies are working, right? We're at a 70-year low for emissions. But what do I always say? Continue reading down, right? Because they always bury the lead later in the story. They know that, a certain percentage of people, a really high percentage, read the headline of a story, and then a certain percentage of those will read that subheadline. And with each paragraph that you move down the story, fewer and fewer people are paying attention. So here we'll go down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th paragraph, and we read, emissions from industry also, and I would say primarily, fell because, quote, quote, significantly by around 11%. So in other words, their electricity usage, their need to burn the coal has declined 11%. Demand is down 11%. That's not good, because there is a direct correlation between energy usage and economic activity. But it's declined 11% principally because energy-intensive sectors reduced production in line with domestic and global economic crises. Again, they're trying to bury this lower. What in the world does that mean? Well, it basically means all of their energy-intensive industries, the ones that Germany is best known for, chemical manufacturing and production, and car assembly lines, and all these wonderful engineering industries, well, they've just shut down, right? a lot of them have shut down. They've stopped production. Why? Well, because of the volatile nature of energy prices and the energy insecurity that Germany faces following the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. This has led to a lot of uncertainty around Germany's energy supply and the prices of that energy. And if you're running a business, well, you're not going to be able to compete globally with higher than average energy prices. And you don't want to run a business. You can't run a business when you're trying to project and make 3 to 5 year plans or 10-year plans, and you have no idea whether energy will be obtainable and at what price. So you just shut it down and you move it somewhere else. So emissions are at a 70-year low, right? but it's because the German economy is in decline. So, lest we have any doubt, let's check out this article from Express. It says, EU heading for crisis as situation really bad in Europe's largest economy. And of course, this is another one where, well, why is that? Let's dig down. Let's see. Well, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, finally we get here and it says the energy crisis hit Germany more than other countries because industry plays a more important role in this country and dependence on Russian gas was much higher than in other countries. Germany is the biggest economy in the European Union, meaning the country's woes could have huge ramifications for the rest of the bloc. And I will go a little bit further than that and say there's a lot more than just the economic implications of a slowdown in Germany. If you remember, if you have a long memory and can remember back to, say, the summer of 2011, there was a major currency crisis unfolding in Europe because you had a lot of indebted nations. If you remember the Greek debt crisis, and Greece needed a bailout in order to avoid default on its debt. And we saw the same thing happening with other nations like Portugal, Spain, Italy. And it was on the basis of Germany and Germany's economic output and efficiency and their ability to balance the budget that enabled basically the bailout of those other nations. So if Germany goes into economic decline, we run the risk of seeing that whole crisis come back into play. And that's a major currency crisis with huge financial and economic implications beyond just your day-to-day economy. But again, we brought up a year and a half ago when we were talking about this, how significant this was and that Europe would be ground zero for the global depression. Now I'm going to say, well, Germany is ground zero of the ground zero. And at that time, we pointed to this article, which I think very much illustrates what's happening here. So this is from October of 2022. 4 German companies, all 125 years or more older, right? So they're all at least 125 years of continuous operations, declared insolvent in 24 hours. So in a single day, 4 German companies that have been in operation for over 125 years all went under in the same day, right? And they were all in different industries. One of them, I think, was made candy. One was in construction. They were all in different industries. Why did this happen? Well, it happened because of this ripple effect. And think of how significant this is. So all 4 of these companies, they survived World War I, the hyperinflation in Weimar Germany, the Great Depression, the rise of Hitler and the Nazis, World War II, the aftermath of World War II when pretty much Germany was a pile of rubble, and everything that's happened ever since. But then, well, this energy situation following the Russia-Ukraine conflict was the last straw that put these companies out of business. And so, guys, we're seeing the impact of the things we talked about a year and a half ago with the energy problems in Europe. And let's turn to this tweet where we can learn a little bit more about this. This is from Luke Groman. He says, great financial crisis duration declines in German industrial production are presumably helping keep European Union natural gas prices down. So we've all heard, the energy crisis in Europe is over. We don't have this problem. Well, the supplies, yes, they have adequate supply, but it's largely because demand has gone down. Why has the demand gone down? Because a lot of the businesses and the heavy industry have simply shut down. And that's not the way that you want to solve your energy crisis. You don't want to solve your energy crisis by returning to a 19th century economy. But that's what's happening. So he says, this is like sawing off your leg to lose weight. Painful, but highly effective for a time, at least until you bleed to death. That'll show those Russians, right? So it says, the last time Germany's industrial production declined for 6 months in a row was 2008, 2009. So we're seeing this decline in Germany. We're seeing heavy industry basically go away because, again, the uncertainty, even if you look at prices now and say, well, energy prices, they're much better than they were a year ago, but the underlying issues haven't been solved. And we're going to talk in a moment about how that could change literally at a moment's notice. And so if you're looking at investing in Germany or investing in the European Union at all, you would look at, well, what's the reliability of their energy grid, the electrical grid, natural gas, oil, access to those different energy sources at competitive prices on a global scale. Do we really want to build our factory there? Do we really want to put our production line there? Now let's just put it over here instead. So that's what's going on. That uncertainty needs to be in place, and it needs to be in place in assuring investors, and it's not there. And so we're seeing spillover into other parts of the economy, as we see here in this article. It says German home prices tumble amid property rout. And it includes this chart right here showing they fell 10.2% in the third quarter, the most since Germany's statistics office began keeping data. So that data only goes back so far, but we see a significant decline in residential home prices. Those of us that are old enough to remember, what triggered the great financial crisis? Well, a significant decline in the price of residential housing prices, specifically in the United States, and that caused underlying problems with bank balance sheets, which then spilled over into other institutions like insurance companies that had insured some of the securities that had been issued based on those mortgages, things of that nature. So it created this contagion that swept through the entire economy. And of course, the housing market employs a large segment of people. You've got real estate agents, and you've got electricians and plumbers and home builders in general, all sorts of people that are connected with a thriving housing market. So when you see declines like this, that's going to have a large impact overall economically. And when you pair it with what we just saw with industrial production declines in Germany, you're looking at a very sick economy in Germany right now. And again, that means bad news for all of Europe, and that means bad news for all of the world. What else is going on in Germany? Well, we also have this tweet here from Wall Street Silver, which shows protests by farmers as well as railway workers. This is from January 10th, so it's almost 2 weeks old at this point, but these protests are still going on. So we have subsidies that are going away. So a lot of what's happening in Germany right now that we see. Why are these farmers protesting? Well, there was a tax break that is given for use of diesel fuel among farmers. And there's a plan to get rid of that tax break, which would just squeeze the farmers even further on the small margins they have to grow food. Kind of important, right? So they're upset about that. They're protesting about that. When they're out doing these protests, they're not out in the fields producing food. The same with the railway workers that are going on strike and others that are going on strike. That means less production. That's going to have an impact. But again, at the heart of this stuff is there is a need to balance the budget. So the German Constitution since 2009 requires a balanced budget. They were able to circumvent that during the pandemic because it was a crisis moment. Well, now that that crisis has passed, they're being required to balance the budget again. And a lot of these subsidies that they've given to businesses and to individuals for their electricity, their natural gas, in order to make life affordable or business competitive, those subsidies are going away. And when they go away, those prices will impact the end consumers or the businesses and cause an economic slowdown that's even further. Now, you won't hear all of this in the media because the mainstream media is saying, well, rah, they're defeating Russia. The liquefied natural gas tanks are 100% capacity for the winter time. And Europe is in good shape. But they don't give you all of the details on that. So let's take a look at this article right here from oilprice.com. It says, German energy giant warns Europe remains exposed to natural gas supply shocks. It says, despite reducing significantly its dependence on Russian gas, Europe remains exposed to natural gas supply and price shocks as it lacks any buffers in the system, the CEO of Germany's top utility, RWE, told the Financial Times in comments published on Monday, and this is from back in December. But it says the lack of buffers continues to expose Europe to shocks and price spikes, even with natural gas storage filled up ahead of the winter heating season. And again, they'll say, well, gas storage is at 100% going into winter. And most people think that means, well, they have everything they need for the winter. No, it means they've reached capacity of their storage, which is approximately a third of what they actually need for the winter. They're counting on more liquefied natural gas being shipped into the EU from various places around the world to refill those tanks as we go through the winter. And of course, if you have a colder than normal winter, that's going to be harder to do. Or if, as they say in this article, you have a supply shock of some sort, well, you may have a problem refilling those tanks. But hey, they're 100%. Everything's moving smoothly. There's no possibility that there will be a supply shock, right? Well, let's take a look at this article right here. If you remember this from, I don't know if it was the last video we did or the one before that. Qatar pauses liquefied natural gas shipments in Red Sea after U.S. bombs Houthis. So Qatar is one of the primary exporters of liquefied natural gas in the world. I think they're third in the world behind the United States, and maybe it was Iran. Don't quote me on that. Maybe they're second. I can't remember, but they're one of the largest liquefied natural gas exporters in the entire world. And this is one of the sources that Europe turned to following the Russia-Ukraine conflict to fill those gas storage tanks and supply energy to Europe. Well, now they're not able to take that natural gas through the Red Sea. They have to go around Africa to get to Europe. That adds extra time to the travel. And most people might say, well, what's the big deal? So it takes a few days longer to get there. It's still getting there. But there's only so many tankers that are made to carry this stuff. There's only so many crew that can take those ships. And if you add extra time to all of the voyages, well, we live in a just-in-time delivery world of supply chain management where there's no extra ships and no extra crews sitting around. So when you add extra time to those voyages, let's say they could make, 10 trips in a year. I'm just making up a number. Well, now maybe they can make 6 because of the extra time, because it's the same ships going back and forth. And if it's taking longer to go back and forth, then they're going to make less trips. So here we have a system that has no buffer, according to this German energy executive, and we're having issues with it already, right now. But no problem, right? There's no problem with that because the United States is awash in natural gas, and they're supplying plenty of natural gas to Europe, Germany in particular. Everything's fine, right? Right? Well, then we have this from Mike Shedlock's blog. Biden weighs banning natural gas exports to save the climate, right? So he's going to save the climate by destroying the global economy, right? So if there's no economy, then there's no energy being used. And so that's what the green people want, right? So all is good. So I don't know whether this is actually going to happen or not. It's saying he's weighing this. Is it to save the climate, or is it an election year ploy to lower domestic natural gas bills before the election and try to win over votes? Who knows? It doesn't really matter what the reason is. If it actually happens, well, then Europe will be instantly plunged into economic decline. No doubt about it, because if you're already having these issues with the Red Sea, and the United States has been shipping massive amounts of liquefied natural gas to Europe, particularly following the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, then you get to a point where the energy can't get to Europe, the prices skyrocket, and the economy simply locks up. And that'll spill over into every other economy in the world, because if you've been watching this channel, you know the global economy right now is like a game of Jenga. And we've been pulling all these blocks out. And for about a year, it looks like, I don't think you can pull another block out, right? And then they managed to pull another block out. But that doesn't mean that everything's good. It just means they managed to pull one more block out. But at some point, it's going to collapse. The tower will fall apart. The house of cards is going to fall apart. The game of musical chairs comes to an end, and there's 100 people in one chair. It can't go on, and therefore what can't go on won't go on. A shock like this could be what could make this happen faster than it otherwise would, but it's coming no matter what. We're going to see not just this global depression, but we're going to see a financial crisis around that, meaning a credit crisis. It's likely with a bank holiday where banks shut down in order to reset the system. We're going to see probably a large stock market decline, and unfortunately a lot of job losses as a result of all of this, similar to what we saw in the Great Financial Crisis, but on a much wider scale, because there's even more debt now built up than there was then. There's even more problems now than there was then. They just swept all the problems under the rug and delayed them for, 15 years. But this will happen. It's just a matter of when. And if we see a shock like this, an energy shock, it could do that. And we could see what's happening with the Houthis escalate in that region. Again, we've pointed out, what if something similar happens in the Persian Gulf? Well, and we see a spike in oil prices. Well, that would be the end game. Plain and simple. That would be the end game. We would see the financial crisis at that moment. So why bring all of this up, right? What does this have to do with end times Bible prophecy? Well, we've talked about the things that they're probably going to do as a result of this financial crisis, such as roll out central bank digital currencies. We know those are not the mark of the beast, but they're indistinguishable in function from the mark of the beast that we read about in Revelation chapter 13, and that they'll be able to control who can buy or sell. They'll be able to cut you off from that. But when you see economic depression on the scale that we're facing, you see the rise of demagogues and revolutionaries and dictators. And so let's take a look at what's happening in Germany right now. While we see this from Zero Hedge, Germany ponders banning its second most popular political party, right? So everything's fine here. We're just going to, you're getting too popular, so we're going to ban this political party. Why? Well, because they're too extreme, according to the party that's in power now, right? They don't want them coming into power. What are some of the extreme things they want? Well, they want farmers to be able to farm, right? You can't have that. Who wants farmers making food so that we have something to eat? Of course, we've seen that happening all over Europe, where farmers have to come out and protest because their governments are trying to shut them down. Go figure. That's an extreme position, wanting farmers to be able to farm. So we need to put an end to that. So when you start seeing things like this, that tells you they're afraid of what's coming. And I'm saying they should be, because no one knows once this happens what will take place, what will transpire. As they say, the best laid battle plans are great until the first shot is fired, and then, well, they go right out the window. And so there are many people that have known this financial calamity is coming, and they've been preparing for it, and they've been putting their plans in place to stay in power using central bank digital currencies and some of these other solutions, right? Solutions they put in place. They want to digitize all of your assets. Your house, right, is going to go on the blockchain, and they'll control that. But they've been preparing for all of this, but they've got to get from where we are now to that period of control, and nobody knows what will happen between here and there. And so this creates a political atmosphere where we could see, well, someone rise to power who will make promises that people really find favorable. And of course, we know the Bible says the Antichrist will rise out of this part of the world. And so this is very interesting from a Bible prophecy perspective to pay attention to this, what's happening in Europe, what's happening politically, and of course, what's happening economically on a global scale, and how all of this points to the nearness of that tribulation period, which means that the second coming of Christ at the end of that tribulation period is also near. And the rapture of the church, which I believe the Bible teaches takes place before the 7-year tribulation, is even closer than that. So guys, Jesus is coming. We should be preparing. We should be doing the work that God put us here to do as we await that moment, but we should be found busy in doing the work that he would want us to do when he comes back. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Hey, maybe a complete shutdown of the economy or a return to 19th century living is going to lower greenhouse gas emissions, and you think that's a good thing. If so, leave your comments below. Maybe you think, that none of this is happening. If so, leave your comments below. That's fine. Let us know what you think. Make sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And God willing, I will see you on Monday. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.